Welcome back to Harbour Unboxed. I am your friendly social distancing monitor, Steve, and with me I have Tim somewhere.
Yep,
He's
I'm here.
And we're here for part 3, Patreon Q&A for July. Anything else to say, Tim, or do we just get into this
No,
thing?
just get in. Let's do it.
Let's just do it. All right, this first question here, let's get into it. Thank you both, first of all. You are very welcome. With Intel doing an oops, we can't get the engine going, do you think Intel could be waiting on getting it right before they start a real product release that beats AMD?
I don't think they're waiting on being able to get it right. I think they can't get it right. I think that's basically the problem as it stands at the moment.
So they can't not release products. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
they've got to do what they can do, and at the moment it's tacking on 2 extra cores. You know, that made the 8th gen release somewhat interesting. Then we got the 9th gen release that tacked on 2 more cores, and then the 10th gen release tacked on a few more cores and adjusted pricing, which was kind of interesting. Where they go from here, it's hard to say. It's making the Intel press briefings quite awkward to listen to and watch, would you say, Tim?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of interesting claims being made, or at least focusing on things that aren't particularly relevant, like reaching 5 gigahertz is like, okay, if that delivers better performance, it's relevant, but in itself, being a desktop processor that reaches 5 gigahertz is not important. So, yeah, the way this question's phrased makes it sound like, is Intel are they sitting on things and they're waiting to just make it perfect before releasing it? I don't think they can do that. I think the position they're in with Ryzen coming, they can't afford to just leave things that potentially could work just sitting around. I think they're going to need to do everything possible, and they just can't hit everything right at the moment because of their fab issues. So, yeah, they're in a tricky position for sure.
Yep. And it's not even a situation where, they get 10 nanometer working with the yields they need, or 7 nanometer, and they run away with it. There's a whole process, a development process that goes into that. So once they get that node working, then they start refining, which is what we've seen with AMD, and it goes from there. So like the approach they're doing now won't necessarily work with really core heavy processors. So there has to be some fundamental changes there. And while I'm sure the initial implementation will be quite impressive, it will require being refined over multiple generations. So there's a lot of work to be done on Intel's side for sure.
Right, next question's a monitor one, so I'll just get straight into it. With LG opening their new OLED factory in China, or OLED as some people think it, when I say OLED, that it's a bit weird. But anyway, I do predict we'll see OLED 4K 144Hz monitors anytime soon. Also, how long before those monitors are priced below $1,000 USD? And why doesn't Samsung produce much in the way of OLED outside of mobile devices? Are there any other companies competing in the market? So a few questions there. So this first one, will LG opening a factory lead to 4K 144Hz monitors? I don't think so. I think that's mostly because LG seems to be focusing on the TV market. So, monitors doesn't seem to be of much interest to them at the moment. How long before we see those monitors priced below $1,000? Again, it'll just take a company to actually get on board and start making them. But it seems fairly expensive to make an OLED monitor, so probably a while. Why doesn't Samsung produce much in the way of OLED outside of mobile? Again, I think it's more just focusing on what they're good at. They're really good at mobile displays. They did used to, I believe, do a bit of TV work on OLEDs, but sort of canned that because LG's technology was better. So, yeah, they're kind of just focusing on their strengths. And are there any other companies competing in the market? I believe there are a few other companies that make OLED panels for like laptops and that sort of thing. I couldn't tell you the manufacturers off the top of my head, but it's not LG or Samsung, I believe. I believe it's a different manufacturer also working on OLED. So, yeah, we're very early days for OLED monitor type products, so it could be a while until we see that sort of thing.
Okay, next one here. We've seen games benefit from 6-core 12-thread versus 4-core 8-thread. Have we seen instances where 8-core 16-thread show improved 1% lows or other performance benefits against 6-core 12-thread chips? Will next-gen consoles even use all 16 threads? So we've certainly got many or multiple instances where 8-core CPUs do perform better in terms of average and 1% low performance when compared to 6. So 8-core chips are certainly better for gaming if we're talking about absolute best performance. There's a lot of games where, yeah, sure, the performance is much the same, but Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I'm pretty sure 8-core CPUs there. Death Stranding is another new game where we're seeing quite good scaling all the way up to even 12-core, 24-thread from what I've seen. The main argument sort of surrounds this whole 4-core, 6-core, 8-core, what's the best for gaming, is that there isn't really any instances where something like the Ryzen 5 3600, 6-core, 12-thread CPU, has any problems with any game. Basically, it plays everything with really good frame time performance, really acceptable performance, and spending the $100 or so more for the 3700X generally doesn't net you much more performance, especially if we're talking about GPUs that you're most likely going to be using up to like 5700 XT, 2070 Super. You really have to be stepping up to 2080 Ti and not be playing at 4K to notice the small performance benefits that those extra cores may enable. So yeah, it's more of a 4-core, 8-thread right on the edge now, starting to have some problems or getting to the point where it will be. 6-core, 12-thread, certainly not. So yeah, but to answer the question, there are games where we can see benefits of having an 8-core, 16-thread processor.
Does YouTube Premium affect your ad revenue at all? I'm more willing to pay for quality content such as yours and also get an ad-free experience, but not sure if it actually benefits you guys. So I thought it's worth answering this question because we get this question a fair bit from some of our Patreon members, and I dug into the numbers, and yeah, it does. So YouTube Premium, it's not like we get nothing from YouTube Premium. Definitely a portion of our AdSense revenue comes from YouTube Premium, and it does seem like we get a bit more per view from YouTube Premium than we do from regular ads. So it seems that it is slightly beneficial for people to be YouTube Premium members versus watching ads. So yeah, definitely if you're interested in signing up to YouTube Premium, I'm personally a YouTube Premium member and I like the ad-free experience. I think it's worth paying for, but obviously other people might have a different opinion depending on how you use YouTube. You're a Premium member as well, I think? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's pretty decent. All right, next question. When reviewers such as you guys get new GPUs to test and review them, is there any warranty coverage tied to them that you usually get when you buy a GPU in the store? Should it fail within a year under normal tests, what actually happens next? So have you had anything fail that you've had to do this with?
Not that I can think of. I mean, we've had a few products that we've killed pretty early on. They just replaced them.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. But really, having products fail, very rare. I'm trying to think of a graphics card that's failed. Can't think of anything off the top of my head. They're all pretty rock solid, pretty good.
They'd probably just replace them. Like, we just contact the company and they'd sort it out.
The only card I can think of that died was an RTX 2080 Ti. I had one in for review. We passed it on to Jared. Jared's Tech, I'm pretty sure. And it died on him. So I think they just replaced it for him so he could do his testing. But yeah, nothing. We certainly don't have to fill out RMA forms or anything. We're just like, new one, please. And they send it.
Crystal ball time for you, Steve, on this one. Which would you recommend? A 4600? Is that even a product that exists? A 4700G
Might
or
as
a
well
3700X?
be. Let's just go with it. Let me test them and I'll give you a recommendation in the content, but honestly, no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, no idea on that one.
Would you,
we'll have to move.
At this point with something like a 4700G coming, would you wait for 4700G benchmarks before buying an 8-core AMD processor, or would you just go straight with 3700X?
3700X is on sale at the moment. It's a really good price. You get a cool games bundle with it. I can't see it, the 4700G really offering anything over a 3700X, but at the same time, I haven't tested it, so...
Yep. Yeah, that's fair. Of all internal PC components, why in Australia do power supply prices appear to have increased the most during the pandemic? I think Steve from Gamers Nexus had a video describing all of this stuff about why certain components are more expensive than the others, and I think it came down to PSUs are just really expensive products to ship. They're heavy, they take up more space than like a CPU, and they're not, high-priced parts, so you're you're not shipping lots and lots of $500 products. You're talking more shipping lots of heavy $100 products, $100 to $200 products. So yeah, that's caused a lot of issues when it comes to sort of this shipping issue that we're currently seeing.
Okay, Tim and Monitor Steve, have you considered going to 30 FPS instead of 60 FPS for 720p and 1080p in YouTube videos? Well, you can't do that. So,
yep.
We obviously export our videos at 4K, and then YouTube downsamples those videos, but they will downsample in whatever FPS you upload them in. So, yeah. And we've explained a million times why we use 60 FPS. So we're definitely not going to 30 FPS for those lower resolutions.
Yeah, that's right.
Namely because we cannot do it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate there's no 1080p 30 mode for lower, bandwidth connections or lower spec PCs that maybe can't handle 1080p 60, although I'd be surprised if there's a computer that can't handle 1080p 60, maybe more a bandwidth thing. So that is a bit annoying, but yeah, just 60 FPS makes more sense. All right, Steve. Upgrading from an i7 4790 to the Ryzen 5 3600. I'm looking at the MSI B450 Pro Carbon, but will this be a good choice if I decide to upgrade to Ryzen 7 4000 series down the line? Would B550 be more suitable? Finding it hard to justify the extra cost unwanted features if both will support Zen 3 anyway. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's a tough one. We haven't seen how well those B450 boards will support the next-gen CPUs. If you are really concerned about support for next-gen, I'd probably get B550, knowing what we know at this point in time. The MSI B550A Pro, that's a pretty decent board for similar money to the Pro Carbon. In fact, I think those B450 boards have shot up massively in price recently, but I could be wrong on that one. But look, I'd probably just put in, if it is a little bit of extra money, I think it's worth it to get yourself a good B550 board. I will have a video on this, a very similar sort of comparison on the channel, somewhere maybe between these Q&As. It may have already gone online by now, I'm not sure. But it'll either be just before this video or just after it. So maybe that's worth checking out. It might help you with that decision.
Okay, so we've got another, I think this is more of a discussion point than a question, but we'll get through it. We'll see what we have to say on it. We've had a lot of growing interest in the computing space, mainly in my opinion due to the introduction of Ryzen. We've seen lots of coverage of AMD-based components for motherboards, and with 5700, 5600 GPUs being interesting, we saw you providing amazing coverage. Thanks. This seems to have created an image of AMD-based products getting shoddy execution by OEMs and AIBs, but when you covered Z490 and proved that this stuff happens everywhere, and that the enthusiasm and amount of reviews on AMD-based products, is it making it seem it's something that is exclusive to AMD, but it isn't? So, yeah, what do you think about this?
Well, I think we've touched on this a fair bit in previous Q&As, and we've said there's definitely some hurdles for AMD, but these things aren't exclusive to AMD. We know there's some dodgy NVIDIA graphics cards. The example here was there was some dodgy Intel motherboards. We saw that with Z390 as well. So that sort of thing with OEMs cheaping out, AIBs cheaping out, certainly not exclusive to AMD. We do see some odd, dodgy decisions around AMD products, but again, some of them may be some outside forces at play. Again, some of it may just be lazy recycling of designs or trying to, penny pinch, maximize profits. So I don't think you can say it's one thing. There'll be different examples, may have different factors at play. Do you guys think X670, it's so weird saying that already, and B650 will happen? Or will they just refresh X570/B550 to something like what Intel did with the X299X, where it will just support Ryzen 4000 out of the box with no flash required? A refresh or a new product will keep the motherboard vendors happy, but have a simple flash to allow. That would be a nice along with having X570 being quite mature. Okay. I don't think there'll be... I don't even know if I have no idea, really. It's AMD. There could be a 700 series by then. Who knows? I hope there isn't a 600 series. I really don't think there needs to be a 600 series, especially given they just released B550. I think those boards will cover it just fine.
Yep.
And boards shipping, just before the release of Ryzen 4000 and after should have that updated BIOS anyway. I don't know. Not much more to say on that one. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I think they'll do something similar to sort of the 400 series stuff where you see the sticker saying Ryzen 3000 support out of the box or whatever it was, but obviously for Ryzen 4000 this time. I think that's more along the lines with what will happen. Again, I agree. I don't think there's much point in a 600 series. All the features of even X570 is feature overkill. So what would a 600 series board offer at that point? I think they'll maybe keep that for DDR5 or something. Who knows? All right, Steve, I know you're a big RGB fan, so you'll be all over this one. Do you think AMD, Intel, or Microsoft could put in RGB software that doesn't completely suck?
AMD, Intel, or Microsoft? So are they saying they would take over the development of RGB software that's done by motherboard
Maybe. I mean, Microsoft, surely that means integrating it into Windows, which is, of course, what everyone wants is an RGB control panel.
You go into the control panel, it's like RGB. That's just... Oh, God. That doesn't I think anyone could, if they put a little bit of time and energy into it, could probably make RGB software that doesn't completely suck relative to what we currently have. It was quite funny. I'm going to derail this slightly because I've pretty much said all I want to say about that. Someone in the comment section on our MSI X570 Tomahawk review said they bought the MSI X570 Tomahawk and have found the board to be excellent as we reported, but they're going to return it because they're super disappointed with how garbage the motherboard software is, like the live update software and all that.
Oh, yeah. Wow, really?
And I'm like, I've got a better solution for you. Uninstall the garbage MSI software and just use the motherboard. And I was like, They didn't realize that was an option. And it was funny. They got back to me 2 weeks later, like, I took your advice. I uninstalled the software and the experience has been great. So it's like,
I didn't know people installed that stuff.
I guess people do because they think it's important or it's required to use the motherboard and Windows properly. But I guess in some ways, if you want to control the lighting and you don't have third-party software that supports it, that's better. Like Corsair does a much better job with their software. I know a lot of people still complain about that, but it's significantly better than what MSI and all the other AIBs include. But I'd rather just disable the RGB effects in the BIOS and not have to deal with the completely garbage software.
Yep.
And it would be nice if the AIBs had better software, but they don't. They just never have, and I don't think they ever will.
It's just bargain basement development. It's like, hey, we need to develop a piece of software so we can tick off a box that we're supporting this with software, and that's it. That's the minimum. They put in the minimum amount of effort.
100% that's what it is. They're like, oh, our competitors are now offering RGB controllable, addressable header things. We need to do that, which means it needs to be accompanied by some software. So let's just open up Notepad for 1 second, boom, and there we go. Now we've got some crap software that supports it.
It sucks, but what can you do?
Yeah, so we can put it on the box that it has live update support and all. Anyway.
All right, final question.
I've been meaning to ask, I'm going to read it out for you, this question for a while. Why don't any AMD laptop OEMs license the use of Thunderbolt 3 when that seems to be a bigger differentiator for Intel parts? Also, when might we see USB 4?
So I think it sounds like we'll be seeing USB 4 pretty soon, within like next year or so for products. As for the Thunderbolt 3 licensing thing, it's an interesting one. I always thought surely one company would do it, but maybe there's some hurdles there that mean they don't want to do it. It's probably a chip that costs money. Like it probably costs a fair bit of money, so they're just, money concerns always...
I mean, that would probably be... We've seen it on desktop boards. So I think ASRock offered it on some mini ITX boards. Yeah. So kind of weird that they've done it on not super expensive AM4 motherboards, but you haven't seen any of the laptops where it would make more sense, I would have thought.
Yeah, I thought it would be more of a thing on laptops. Again, a lot of AMD laptops aren't necessarily high-end products, so...
Yeah, well, there's also that.
Massive wind happening at my house at the moment. But,
was that wind, was it?
Yeah, I think there was some trees knocking about or something, but something happened.
Okay.
Anyway, I would have thought, once we get more higher-end laptops that we'll start to see more Thunderbolt 3 implementations. There'll probably be more of a selling point there, whereas, just a lot of AMD laptops at the moment are sort of your mid-range, entry-level products, which you wouldn't spend $10 or $15 on Thunderbolt on a mid-range product. So, Yeah, hopefully they'll get better over time, but it's like AMD with any sort of high-end product, like high-end discrete GPUs in laptops. It's been an issue for them that they'll just need to overcome over time.
All right, and that concludes this month's Patreon Q&A, and just all the Q&As for this month. We're now done.
All good.
Good to have it done. Yeah, well, hopefully next month is as interesting. Don't know what'll be happening next month. I really have no idea. I haven't even thought about next month.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird one next month. I think there'll be a lot more questions about consoles and upcoming launches and that sort of thing, because we're kind of in that intermediate period between things.
Of a lull.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah. But of course, regardless of what's going on, and we'll no doubt have plenty of content between Tim and myself. Yep. There'll be things happening, things to watch. So make sure you do that. And yeah, apart from that, not much more to say. Just thank you to everyone who watched. Thank you to our lovely Patreon members who, well, make awesome Q&A sessions like this possible, as well as some of the testing we do, whether it's cutting ASUS laptops into bits or buying B550 motherboards that won't get sent to us, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yep.
So thank you. Anyway, I'm your host, Steve.
I'm your host, Tim. Thanks for watching.
See you again next time.
See ya.
Thanks for watching. See you again next time. All of the above.
All fine.